Welcome to the Global WarWatch Network. Today we're confronting a truly harrowing reality. Famine has now been declared in Gaza. Hunger is spreading, fast impacting civilians, journalists, even doctors on the front lines. What's really happening and why now?
It's a critical moment, absolutely. And the sources we've gathered today from the Council on Foreign Relations, the WHO, UN agencies, various humanitarian organizations, they offer a stark picture. Our goal here is really to unpack these reports for you, to navigate the multiple perspectives, which often conflict, frankly, and hopefully give you a clear, unvarnished look at this crisis. We'll explore the official declarations, the human impact, the factors contributing, and the complex roles of all the key players involved.
Okay, let's unpack this then. When we hear headlines like famine officially declared, it's jarring. But what does that actually mean on the ground? Beyond just, severe hunger, what are the criteria that push a crisis to this level?
That's a really important distinction. So, the UN-backed Global Hunger Monitor, the Integrated Food Security Phase Classification, or IPC, they officially declared an entirely man-made famine in Gaza City on August 20th.
Gaza City itself, okay.
Right, the largest population center. And this isn't just a general assessment. To be declared an IPC famine, you need specific, grim thresholds met. At least 20% of households facing an extreme lack of food, 30% of children under 5 suffering acute malnutrition.
30%.
Yes. And tragically, at least 2 people per 10,000 dying daily from starvation or that deadly mix of malnutrition and disease.
Daily. Those numbers really put it into perspective.
They do, and the IPC confirming Gaza City as a worst-case scenario just underscores how unprecedented this is.
And that phrase, entirely man-made, it's powerful, very specific. It signals this isn't, a drought or a natural disaster. It implies human actions or inactions are the root cause. What's the immediate impact we're seeing?
The scale is just heartbreaking, and how fast it's escalating. According to the IPC, at least a quarter of Palestinians in Gaza, that's 500,000 people, are currently in a state of starvation.
500,000 people.
And that number isn't static. It's projected to jump to 640,000 by the end of September. It's dire. UN and local health officials are attributing hundreds of deaths directly to malnutrition or, disturbingly, violence at food aid distribution sites.
Violence trying to get food.
Exactly. The Palestinian Health Ministry reported at least 273 starvation deaths in recent weeks, as of August 22nd. And the UN reported over 1,000 Palestinians have died just trying to access food. It shows the sheer desperation.
These aren't just numbers. Each one is a life.
Precisely. Each number represents a family destroyed.
It's easy to think of civilians as a general group, but our sources seem to show this hunger hitting specific groups very hard.
Yeah.
It's not uniform, is it? Who are we really talking about here?
You're absolutely right. It's hitting every corner, but disproportionately impacting the most vulnerable. First, children. The UN Agency for Palestinian Refugees, UNRWA, warns 1 million children in Gaza. Half the entire population are at risk of starvation.
1 million children.
And the WHO reports over 50 children have already died of malnutrition since March. It's devastating for the future.
And it's not just the general population, right?
Yeah.
Our sources mentioned aid workers, doctors.
Yes. That's another deeply concerning layer. UN officials state their own staff on the ground, including aid workers, doctors, journalists, people there to help or report, are fainting from hunger and exhaustion. Doctors Without Borders described their colleagues as wasting away before their eyes. Imagine witnessing that.
Unbelievable. The very people trying to respond.
And Agence France Presse, AFP, reported its own journalists are starving. One was quoted saying, "None of us can ever remember seeing colleagues die of hunger." It shows a total system collapse.
That image is chilling. It really underscores that this isn't just about food scarcity. It's the collapse of basic services. What about the healthcare system?
It's catastrophic, and it's a vicious cycle with the famine. The WHO says Gaza's hospitals are at their breaking point.
Breaking point.
An alarming 94% are damaged or completely destroyed by the conflict. Fewer facilities, fewer beds, fewer resources. And now, the worsening hunger sends more people to these overwhelmed places, suffering malnutrition, dehydration, related illnesses.
So the system is hit from both sides. Damage from conflict and overload from the hunger crisis.
Exactly. The UN warned Gaza's last lifelines keeping people alive are collapsing. That means hospitals, sanitation, water, food distribution, all crumbling.
Which brings us back to that man-made label. It forces us to look at the actors involved. Our sources point to a really complex interplay. Let's start with Israel's role, based on the materials. What are the key points?
This is where it gets incredibly complex and contested. The sources detail several Israeli actions. The most significant point of contention is definitely the blockade and the restrictions on aid distribution.
The blockade's been long-standing, but have things changed recently?
Yes, while the blockade exists, specific limits on aid distribution are frequently cited. Experts like David Sheffer at CFR suggest these might violate international humanitarian law, particularly around ensuring access. Then, in March, Israel halted aid shipments entirely for 11 weeks.
11 weeks. Why?
Their stated reason was alleging Hamas was siphoning off aid. Hamas, of course, denied this, but that halt created a huge gap.
Okay, so aid stopped, then what?
Aid was allowed back in May, but through this new, quite controversial channel, the Gaza Humanitarian Foundation, or GHF.
GHF, what's that?
It's a for-profit entity backed by the U.S. and Israel. The idea was to bypass Hamas.
A for-profit aid channel. How did that work out?
Well, according to our sources, not well at all. Reports consistently say the GHF delivered only a trickle of aid, that it has not worked effectively and has actually cost lives.
A trickle. That sounds counterproductive.
Extremely. An IPC analysis even predicted the GHF plan would lead to mass starvation, even without factoring in violence. It's a stark example of how sometimes trying to create new, politically motivated aid systems in a crisis can backfire badly.
And the motivation behind restricting aid in the first place.
Stephen Cook, also at CFR, suggests a dual motivation for Israel. Preventing aid reaching Hamas, yes, but also potentially using scarcity to demoralize the population.
That's a strong claim.
Yeah.
But Israel disputes this narrative entirely.
They do, vehemently. Prime Minister Netanyahu's office called the IPC famine report an outright lie.
An outright lie. What's their counter-narrative?
They claim Israel has delivered 2 million tons of aid. They also reiterate the claim that Hamas has looted many shipments to, quote, finance its war machine. They also reject potential war crimes allegations, pointing to what they call faulty figures from Hamas-run health facilities.
So, completely different stories. How do the sources suggest we navigate that? It seems impossible to verify independently.
It's incredibly difficult. Experts point to misinformation from various sides, and also a significant lack of outside reporting due to Israeli media restrictions. This makes getting a clear picture very hard.
That lack of independent verification seems key.
It is. And one more point on Israeli actions. On July 27th, they announced a tactical pause for humanitarian corridors. But then, in late August, they pressed on with an expanded offensive into Gaza City. So the signals are mixed, to say the least.
Okay, so Israel points the finger at Hamas, especially regarding aid diversion. What do our sources say about Hamas's role in this?
Sources mention several points concerning Hamas. First, the allegation we just discussed that Israel and figures like U.S. Ambassador Mike Huckabee contend Hamas has looted aid. That obviously impacts distribution.
Right.
Second, Stephen Cook states Hamas has actively incited violence at aid sites. The suggested goal is to create chaos and then blame Israel.
Creating chaos deliberately.
That's the allegation from Cook. Third, Hamas has insisted aid comes only through the UN. While that might sound reasonable, some experts worry it could allow Hamas to manipulate the UN system for its own benefit, adding another layer of political complication.
So allegations of looting, inciting violence, and trying to control the aid flow through the UN, it adds more complexity.
Definitely.
What about the wider international community? The U.S., the UN, how have their actions, or maybe inactions, factored in?
They've played complex roles, too. The famine declaration itself came after weeks of very limited aid getting in, suggesting broader systemic failures. Internationally, there are growing calls for Israel to lift aid limits, with experts framing it as a matter of international law.
But hasn't the main UN agency there faced problems?
Yes, UNRWA, the key UN agency for Palestinian refugees, faces severe funding cuts and suspended services due to controversy. That leaves a massive gap in aid capacity.
And the U.S. role, you mentioned they backed the GHF.
Right. The U.S. supported GHF with at least $30 million in June. Part of the rationale traces back to the previous Trump administration's distrust of the UN. And Stephen Cook notes there's been no indication the current White House or State Department has really pushed Israel hard to let the UN distribute aid freely.
So U.S. politics are potentially hindering UN efforts.
Cook suggests U.S. politics regarding the UN have hobbled effective aid efforts, perhaps prioritizing other strategic goals over humanitarian access via the UN.
But there has been international condemnation.
Oh, yes. A group of 28 foreign ministers, including Canada, Japan, the UK, condemned recent deaths at aid sites, saying the war must end now. But diplomatic efforts are stalled. U.S. envoy Steve Witkoff recently cut short ceasefire talks, citing Hamas's perceived lack of desire. So everyone's calling for action, but the path forward is blocked.
So blockades, restrictions, looting claims, failing alternative channels, international political hurdles. What does this actually mean for someone in Gaza just trying to get food for their family? It sounds unbelievably dangerous.
It is utterly dangerous. The scarcity, the breakdown of order, the political fighting over aid, it's made distribution sites lethal hotspots.
Lethal.
Yes. On July 20th, nearly 100 civilians were shot and killed trying to get food from UN convoys. The week before, a stampede at a GHF site killed at least 20. People are dying just trying to reach aid.
My God, that level of desperation.
Aid groups like CARE International, working there since 1948, describe cities as rubble, children holding empty pots, people visibly shrinking from starvation. Their own team hadn't received an aid shipment in 140 days as of late July. The World Food Program says nearly 1 in 3 people aren't eating for days at a time.
1 in 3.
It's chaos born directly from the breakdown of this man-made aid system.
The immediate human cost is clear and catastrophic.
Right.
But looking broader, what are the implications internationally? You mentioned international law earlier.
The implications are significant. David Sheffer, the CFR law expert, warned explicitly that this situation could put Israel at risk of war crimes charges.
War crimes. Based on what specifically?
He specified that willfully impeding relief supplies leading to starvation or harming civilians trying to access that relief could constitute war crimes under international statutes. It's a serious legal warning.
And beyond law, how does this affect resolving the conflict?
This whole humanitarian crisis, the aid access issue, has become a constant sticking point in ceasefire talks between Israel and Hamas since October 2023. It complicates everything. You can't get to broader issues when people are starving, and the basic mechanism to help them is broken and contested. It holds peace efforts hostage.
So given all this, the dire need, the dangers, the legal warnings, the diplomatic stalemate, what are humanitarian groups and international bodies calling for right now?
The calls are urgent and clear. Reduce the bureaucratic hurdles blocking aid entry. Stop the targeting of aid workers and civilians seeking help. That's the immediate plea. And there's that strong consensus among many foreign ministers. The war itself must end now. They see the conflict and the humanitarian crisis as inseparable.
But a ceasefire seems elusive, based on what you said about the recent talks.
Exactly. Envoy Witkoff cutting talks short highlights the deep impasse. The political will, the trust, it just doesn't seem to be there from all sides right now.
So if a ceasefire isn't immediately possible, what can be done to protect civilians trying to get aid, given how dangerous it is?
Well, David Sheffer argues that even without a ceasefire, military rules of engagement must change. They should prioritize protecting innocent civilians seeking aid in these desperate conditions.
A shift in military priorities on the ground.
That's the argument. But, tying back to what Stephen Cook said, there's been no indication of effective U.S. pressure on Israel to let the UN, the agency with the infrastructure, distribute aid safely and freely.
So a potential practical solution is hindered by political dynamics.
It appears so. U.S. politics related to the UN and perhaps its broader relationship with Israel seem to be complicating the immediate humanitarian response.
This conversation has really laid bare the stark reality.
Yeah.
An entirely man-made famine, stemming from this incredibly complex web of actions, politics, motivations, and ultimately tragic consequences. It really makes you ask, in a world with so many resources, international laws, frameworks, how do we let these man-made catastrophes happen? And what's our responsibility, as people hearing this, to demand accountability and solutions that actually work, free from political games?
That's the crucial question we're left with. Thank you for joining us for this vital discussion.
We hope this exploration has given you a clearer understanding of the huge challenges and the urgent need for action in Gaza. Thank you for your time and participation. Please remember to like, share, and subscribe to the Global WarWatch Network. We'd also welcome your thoughts in the comments section, and you can join us on social media. The links are in the description.